And that is also similar to other provisions of our laws. Only of recent, the plea bargain provision came into big questioning again, but it was a judicial officer that brought out the insincerity in the implementation. It was Justice Okon Aban of the Federal High Court in Asaba that saw how a federal prosecutor, seems to compromise a number of things that had been provided for in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act under the plea bargain section. On the scale today, we shall be revisiting that section and see what Nigeria can benefit from it. Welcome to the program, The Scale of Justice. I am Femi Okeowo. We are discussing the plea bargain provision. This is a provision in other crimes that has reduced so much time wasting in criminal trials, particularly financial crimes, where people are made to surrender part of what they have illegally acquired, and then they are allowed to plea bargain those charges that have been leveled against them, and then, of course, they go for a trial, and the process determines what sentence they are given. But here in Nigeria, because the provision allows you to substitute charges for lesser ones when you are not able to prove the higher ones, there is an element of compromise by the parties that are there. But then the law itself has provided for areas of checks and balancing. Are these checks being applied? It's not the lack of laws that is the problem of Nigeria, it's the lack of compliance to the provisions. And we hope that since the courts are there to determine whether the provisions are strictly followed, people, prosecutors, defenders, and litigants generally will follow all the aspects which the law has provided for. Now, we take another look at what the National Judicial Council is doing to improve justice dispensation generally. We have highlighted the opening of the virtual courts across the country. There are 9 of such courts that have been opened, and this is to enhance the administration of criminal justice. It's to enhance our justice system and to facilitate the quick deliverance of justice. And so let's look again at other aspects that would help improve our justice system.
This moot court trial signaled the inauguration of the first virtual court in any correctional center in the country. The venue is the Kuje Medium Correctional Center in Abuja, with capacity for 516 inmates, but currently housing 988. It is a child of necessity arising from the need to decongest the correctional centers and to clear backlog of cases pending in the courts.
It's an enactment and consolidation of the Spirit of Administration of Criminal Justice Act, targeted at speedy determination of cases by way of eliminating delays and displacement of denial of justice, which will further support our policy of decongestion of correctional centers across the country. As a government, we employed legislative solution by way of enacting the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. We equally enact policy decisions by way of having in place Presidential Committee on Decongestion and Reform of Correctional Centers, which has been established by what the committee has been doing in terms of aggressive decongestion of correctional centers formations across the country. We equally consolidated that effort by what we are witnessing this afternoon in terms of deployment of technology for the purpose dissemination of justice through deployment of technological process.
It's the professionalism of our officers in those facilities. So I salute them. One of the ways we are addressing protection is the building of a 3,000 high capacity custodial facility in each of the geopolitical zones. The Kano and Abuja projects are nearing completion. When these projects are completed, they will ease congestion considerably. All these projects are designed to have courts in situ and aid the restoration of justice. But what we are doing today has made it, though what is our plan, the virtual courtroom is something else. It means you can dispense with cases in a jiffy, believing that all the other components of effective and efficient management of cases will be present.
The target of this initiative is to significantly address the perennial challenge of overcrowding in most of our urban facilities. Of significance is the fact that virtual courtroom sessions will also drastically reduce the cost and danger of conveying auto trial persons to and from courts. This and much more make this intervention unique and most desirable.
The initiative enjoys the support of the Supreme Court of Nigeria and the United Nations Development Program.
With these facilities in place, the issue of frequent adjournment in our cases because of the absence of inmates and other reasons connected thereto would be a thing of the past.
While the measure is an important milestone, it is equally suggested that urgent attention be paid to the prevalent overcrowded nature of our correctional centers so that in the end, we will have succeeded in achieving a center that is truly correctional and virus-free.
With this inauguration, the Federal Ministry of Justice is set to duplicate same across custodial centers in the country.
The Nigerian Prison Service became the Nigerian Correctional Service in 2019, following presidential assent to the Nigerian Correctional Service Bill. Beyond the name change, the new act was intended to address the issue of inadequate funding, deal with overcrowding in the custodial centers, and put in place a framework for the rehabilitation and transformation of inmates.
The law provides that once a certificate is issued, that no person can be discriminated upon. That I know. So if you are discriminated, it means you approach the court.
For instance, inmates now study behind the walls with the National Open University of Nigeria providing free education up to doctorate level, while books are provided by the National Library from time to time. Inmates are also acquiring skills in diverse fields like baking, tailoring, welding, hairdressing, laundry, poultry farming, among others, with starter packs provided to help reintegrate them into society.
I learned tailoring, electrical, computer, and education.
Now, with all of these in place, the inmates can gradually move beyond the wrongdoings of their past and the confinement of their present to laying the groundwork for a more progressive future. Drugs are also regularly provided to nurse inmates back to health when they get under the weather. In recognition of the fact that overcrowding was a major undoing of the then Nigerian Prison Service, the Act contains key provisions that should ensure that custodial centers are never overcrowded. For instance, in the 2019 Act, the State Controller is authorized to notify relevant bodies within 1 week where a custodial center has exceeded its capacity and subsequently refused to accept new intakes. Although there is annual pardon and decongestion exercise across the country, overcrowded custodial centers is evidence that the law is not being implemented, and this has been blamed by experts for the spate of jailbreaks in recent times.
This boils down to our over-criminalization of minor offenses. So you arrest the person for stealing a chicken, and the charge you get is armed robbery.
Apart from jailbreaks across the country, usually blamed on the number of awaiting trial inmates, the cost of litigation and upkeep of inmates to the government is another factor generating concerns.
It's not everybody that you need to send to custody and have the government spend money. That there are people that can work with them in the community and all the rest of that. But yet there was no budgetary allocation.
Experts hailed the Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019 as a missing link in Nigeria's criminal justice system. But there needs to be a faithful implementation of the law to get the desired results.
And now, let's close the program with our visit to the courts. We take a visit to the courts and see the recent happenings in our various courts as we introduce our correspondent, Amarachuku Omenka.
The Abuja Division of the Court of Appeal has reserved its judgment on appeals seeking to set aside the High Court verdict that nullified the participation of the All Progressive Congress APC and its candidate Andy Oba in the governorship election that held in Anambra State on November 6. A three-man panel of justices of the court, led by Justice Stephen Ada, adjourned the matter after all the parties adopted their final briefs of arguments. The appellant, through their lawyers, Mahmoud Magaji-San and Abdullahi Aliu, contended that the Federal High Court in Abuja erred in law when it held that the APC did not conduct a valid primary, therefore did not present a valid candidate for the gubernatorial election. They argued that the trial court failed to properly evaluate the proof of evidence that was adduced before it to prove that Oba emerged through a valid conducted primary pool. Meanwhile, whereas the first respondent, George Mohalo, whose suit led the High Court judgment, urged the court to dismiss the appeal, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, said it will abide by the decision of the court. It will be recalled that the High Court had in a judgment Justice Inyang Ekwo delivered on December 20, 2021, held that APC's primary election, where Oba emerged as its flag bearer, was torn in substantial breach of both the electoral guidelines for the conduct of the governorship primary election as well as party's constitution. It held that APC had failed to comply with the law in the conduct of its primaries, and therefore no reflection of any valid candidate for the gubernatorial contest. The plaintiff alleged that the party had, in violation of its constitution and guideline, handpicking Senator Oba in a kangaroo primary election he said was conducted around 6 p.m. on June 26, 2021. Mohalo, who was among the 14 aspirants